Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
You are listening to the TrekRanks Podcast, a member of the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network. This is episode 10, featuring the top 5 Klingon episodes. Kapla, Klingon warriors.
Kapla.
I am Jim Moorhouse, son of Moorhouse, from the house of Moorhouse. That's one of our houses. Yeah, exactly. And as always, I'm being joined this evening by everyone's Chadich, the Honorable Jeff Hulit, the founder of the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network. Jeff, welcome.
Jim, are you foreshadowing one of my picks? I think
no, I'm not.
One of my picks.
But
you might.
Everybody loves
you might
Chadich.
Dude, I'm so beyond amped to be here tonight for this episode. Two of my great friends are going to be on this episode too with us, and I'm not going to spoil who they are because I know you're going to tell everybody, but this is going to be one of the most fun Trek ranks so far.
I really agree. This topic, it sounds like a Klingon episode, but no, this topic is fantastic, especially because it's the first of 2 episodes we're doing where we are going to be celebrating Star Trek Discovery Month.
Yes.
Because Star Trek is returning to television this month, September 2017. Could not be more fired up about that. And Klingons going to be a big part of that. All right, so let's spoil who's on the episode tonight. First up, we have another member of the Tricorder family, Mr. Ian Adams, host of our Gold Key Comics show with Jeff. Mr. Adams, are you ready for your rite of ascension?
Well, I don't know. I mean, do we have to have the pain sticks?
Yes, we have to have the pain stick. This is a TrekRanks Klingon necessity.
Oh, okay. Well, if you're going to have the pain sticks, I guess I'll still do it.
As long as you have 5 words and a hashtag, we're okay. Okay.
I mean,
also,
coming up with them was kind of like a pain stick.
That's true. It's like homework. It's like Star Trek homework. All right. And also joining us from deep inside the Ketha province, from his home world Kronos, one of our all-time favorites, Mr. Andy Fark, the drummer for everyone's favorite Star Trek band, 5-Year Mission. Andy, welcome to the show.
What up, my pataks?
Oh,
wait. Is that good? That's good. That's Klingon, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just double check.
Andy is our second 5-Year Mission member to join us. We saved the best for second because he's the core. He's the drummer. Come on, what are you gonna do?
That's right. Actually, I'm the Koloff, not the core.
I like that. I like that. Already a Klingon play on words. So let's get a quick 5-Year Mission update because Andy is here with 3 massive 5-Year Mission fans. And if you don't listen to 5-Year Mission, what is wrong with you?
Exactly.
They will.
If you don't listen to 5-Year Mission, shame on you.
Yeah,
shame, else, I say.
People are sick of me talking about it, but they add so much. So year 4 is on its way, right? Getting closer.
Yeah. I mean, we're in the mixing process of most of the tracks right now. We still have to record all the vocals for Day of the Dove, which, spoiler alert, it is basically a kind of a follow-up to Mike's "The Trouble with Tribbles," the like the Beastie Boys rap song.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is basically going to be a follow-up to it. So.
Okay.
Yeah, we get to all rap again, including Patrick this time.
Oh, that's going to be interesting. I love that.
Very.
I got Mike previewed a couple songs for me when I was in Indy, and as always, as you would expect, they're awesome. They are awesome. So this year 4 we know is going to be just as good as year 1, 2, 3, and Spock's Brain.
Yeah, it's going to be better.
Andy, true story.
Ian.
I bought the entire catalog of your band on iTunes while I was in Pearl Harbor, fueling up for 8 hours.
So great.
Because we were doing an ocean crossing, and then I was on the night watch, and the second mate didn't mind if we played music, so I brought up, my iPhone, which I had downloaded all to, and so we listened to 5-Year Mission across, like halfway across the Pacific from Hawaii to 3 days out of Panama. And then the Navy turned us around. And so then it was another 3 weeks back to Saipan. So that was like 5 weeks basically of mostly listening to 5 Year Mission on the night watch.
Wow. That's intense.
It was fantastic. And
where do I sign up for the Merchant Marines? That sounds awesome.
Well, you got to go to your local Coast Guard.
Okay, all right.
Nice. That's awesome. So we're finally we could finally say, you know, enjoyable even on the high seas.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Nice.
I love it. And we could literally talk about 5 Year Mission all night. So again, 5yearmission.net. Go download year 1, whatever, year 2, they're all awesome. Year 3 is amazing. Might be my favorite. Anyway, okay. So let's do a quick origin story because we like our listeners to get a feel for who's joining us. So let's talk little background Trek. I know, Ian, a lot of people have known your story, but just give us your quick introduction to Trek.
Yeah. I mean, the short version is when I was a little kid, just learning how to read. My dad, both my parents had just wall-to-wall bookshelves, and among those bookshelves was a book that my dad had from the 70s, back when he used to go to convention and stuff. And it was the Starfleet Technical Manual, and I picked it up, and I'm like, what's this? It's got like cool starships and like handguns and, you know, deck plans and, you know, all sorts of stuff in it. And I asked him, and he was like, well, it's from a television show. Would you like to watch it? And so then one night he let me stay up, and we watched my very first Star Trek episode, which was Mirror, Mirror. And then through a comedy of errors, I didn't get to see that again for like another 20 years. Yeah, that was what like led the whole thing. Like I just became obsessed after that. And yeah, I love Star Trek.
So a lifelong fan like myself and Jeff. And Andy, what's your background? How long have you been a Trek fan?
I started off when I was probably like I want to say like 8 years old. I grew up like a really big wrestling fan.
Yeah.
And so on like Saturday mornings, like that's what I would do. I'd wake up, I'd watch wrestling, and then sometimes I would forget to turn off the TV. And one day I just kind of like was just sitting there and watching, and then the Corbomite maneuver came on, and I had no clue what Star Trek was. And so I watched it all the way through. I was fascinated with the alien popping in and out, and then it turns out to be this weird gap-toothed kid. So then basically like every day after that for like a year, it was basically, you know, wrestling and Star Trek. All like basically that was my Saturday morning.
Those are pretty good staples.
Yeah. And so then, I mean, I stopped watching, and then I kind of picked back up probably about like halfway through the first run of TNG.
Yeah.
And then there's some more lost years, and then I got back into it probably about 9 years ago. Yeah, by about 9 years ago. And then now I think I'm probably the biggest fan in the band now.
Now you're
really?
now you're in a Star Trek band.
Yeah, I'm in a Star Trek band, and then now I can also like sometimes like beat Mike on like Star Trek trivia, which is amazing now.
Yeah, and we know Mike's pretty hardcore too. So
he is
definitely the battle between Fark and Rittenhouse. Okay,
that'd be a tough one.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so before we get into our diagnostic cycle, just do a quick Trek Ranks reset. Just to remind everyone, this is straight out of the Treaty of Algernon. This is our Trek Ranks staple. Is that this podcast is about all the reasons we love Star Trek. We're not here to nitpick or do any of that. We're just talking about the things we love about Trek. That's what this podcast is all about. And we use rankings as the crutch to just have a fun conversation and maybe think about some elements of Trek in a way that you haven't thought about before. So the main driver, of course, for that discussion is
infinite diversity.
In infinite combinations.
That's right, Vulcan Master. Our mantra at Trek Ranks is no wrong answers. This show, again, not about nitpicking. We love it all here. Kelvin timeline to TOS. all the way through to Enterprise and soon to be Discovery. So it's all fair game on the TrekRanks podcast. All right. So, Jeff, before we begin our rite of ascension, can you please make sure the path to Kal'Hyah has been cleared so anyone visiting us at TrekRanks can get through?
Hailing frequencies are open.
You got it, Jim. So if you're looking to contact us online, you can find us at TrekRanks.com and the TricorderTransmissions.com. We are also at TrekRanks on Twitter, and we have a voicemail that you can leave us your picks at 609-512-LLAP. And don't panic, we'll give you that number again at the end of the show. And also, I'm Warp Factor Jeff on Twitter if you're looking for me. Back to you, Jim.
Excellent. And I am at Enterprise Extra and at TrekRanks, and Twitter is pretty much the way to get a hold of me. And if you check out our TrekRanks page at the TricorderTransmissions.com, we have a pretty cool running total of some of the TrekRanks statistics from our first 10 shows or so. So, Ian and Andy, how can people get a hold of you guys?
Well, I'm on Twitter at Andy Fark, not the most clever Twitter handle ever. And then also at 5-Year Mission. That's the number 5-Year Mission. And also 5yearmission.net.
And I'm just at Ian128K as in kilo. And that's on Twitter. I'm also on Facebook, but, don't add me because I'm never on there.
Ian, I'm confused by that because you could say as in kilobyte.
Well, that is what it's supposed to be. Yeah. It is all related to the my love of the original 1984 Macintosh, which had 128 kilobytes of RAM, and that as they introduced models with more RAM, that became its identifier. Instead of being like the original Macintosh, they sold it as the Macintosh 128K.
Is that a lot of RAM?
It was back then.
Yeah, it was. Okay.
It's twice as much as Voyager has.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, of course.
No,
Yep.
That's not a slam. Like the Voyager probe that is.
No, I know.
Yeah,
we know that.
64.
Yes.
Kilobytes. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Nerd.
Okay. Next time on NASA Rank. Okay, all right. I think we are now ready to move into the Klingon High Council chamber and get into the topic for this episode.
Diagnostic cycle will be complete in 20 seconds.
All right, top 5 Klingon episodes. Let's do it. Guys, let's start the diagnostic cycle. Without getting into your Prime Directive, I want to briefly let's just discuss Klingons for a few minutes. Let's start with you, Ian. What's your overall take on Klingons? Do you like them? Do you like the way they were dealt with? Do you think they're overrated? What's your take?
I've always liked the Klingons. The one thing, though, that I've been kind of getting into lately is that, it was really a Next Generation when the whole Klingon culture really got explored. And before, in the original series and even up to like kind of the first 4, you might even say first 6 Star Trek movies, they were really just villains for the sake of being villains. Like we all knew, of course, they were the stand-ins for the Russians or whatever, but you look at, like character motivations and stuff like that, it was really just like them being villains for the sake of being villains. And I've been getting fascinated, especially with the TOS Klingons. And I'm not saying that's in my Prime Directive. I'm just saying like that's something that's really captured me lately is just sort of the strangeness, the one-dimensionality of the TOS Klingons, because when you start watching them with all of the later series in mind, you can't help but have your opinion of these early Klingons be influenced by all of the stuff that came later. And so you're kind of like injecting 3-dimensionality to these essentially one-dimensional characters, and it's really fun to watch. So that's my answer.
I can see that, and TNG is where obviously the depth and layers of Klingons as we know them now is most explored. How about you, Andy? What's your Klingon take?
I love the Klingons. I mean, they're this like just warring tribal race. I mean, of course, we didn't really kind of get that, like Ian said, until like TNG, we didn't really, delve too deeply into them. But yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. Like the more like that you learn about them, like some of their rituals and customs and how like they came to be, and then now we're gonna get so much more backstory on Discovery of the Klingons that I cannot wait.
The stuff that they've teased really makes you think as we get closer to this thing that it's really going to be linked well. Not that I even think that's that important, because I get it. Sometimes you got to reinvent things a little bit to tell a new story. But they're going to have a much better budget this time around. There's the production value, and plus, I mean, they're obviously going to be delving way deeper into like Klingon lore with this one, because I can just tell just by watching. This is my personal take. There's some like underground like religious sect, and basically like the keepers of like probably not Kalis, but probably like an offshoot. It sounds like something like that is brewing. So Jeff, how about you?
Yeah, I guess maybe I'm going to be the detractor here. I'm glad that Ian brought up the TOS era Klingons. As a guy who grew up watching syndicated TOS episodes, I came to know the Klingons as what they were in TOS, and watching their evolution, I think I got like a kind of a Klingon burnout in a way, and I was never really that into the brutish hulking warrior thing, and I get it though. And they are cool and they're interesting, but I always really preferred the more cunning and sinister TOS Klingons. I guess it's a little foreshadowing. Try not to do too much of my Prime Directive here, but my heart is really with the original series Klingons.
If I could just interject,
sure.
I totally agree with you with that whole like the Klingons were much more cunning in the original series, and that is the part about the TOS Klingons that really fascinates me, is because you get from the later series like just these boisterous, full of life Klingons, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not the kind of like, let's see how these chess pieces move across the board.
Exactly. Yep.
And that is something that has definitely always endeared me to them as well, and I think that's probably part of my current fascination with them.
Yeah, same with me. I feel like that kind of got lost later on. I love that in the earlier TOS episodes that you had that more manipulative and intelligent tactician type of Klingon, and I feel like they went completely the opposite direction and made them more of a violent, brutal, physical Klingon. And I can't give away too much more without giving away my Prime Directive. So.
No, and I get it. And your breakdown is good, because I'm actually kind of in the middle. I do love the Klingons, but there was times when I would get in a mode of, all right, we've kind of seen this or seen this kind of one note character a little too many times, whether it's later TNG or DS9, and yeah, they were very different than what we saw in TOS. And in some ways, I might have preferred TOS, but that will maybe not be reflected in my pick. So, all right.
Okay.
We've dove into this enough. Let's go into our Prime Directive here. All right. Let's figure out what everyone's Prime Directive looks like for our Klingon deep dive.
I do not concur with your captain's decision.
She's following our Prime Directive.
Define Prime Directive.
All right, Ian and Adam, what's your Prime Directive look like? What was the criteria, Ian, for your picks?
Okay, so I thought a lot about it, because the subject, the topic was so open-ended. It was top 5 Klingon episodes. Well, what does that really mean, right? And so I went with ones where I was trying to kind of highlight either huge events in Klingon history or huge stories in Klingon culture, and that's all I'm going to say.
I love that. So, and that's what the Prime Directive is all about, because the reality is this topic could mean anything to you. It could be, you could have a favorite Klingon episode that they just told a story about the Klingons for 5 minutes and you barely even see a Klingon. That could be your favorite Klingon. So it doesn't matter how big or broad or small or targeted it is. That's the whole point of the Prime Directive. So I love that. So you're looking at big events and kind of what did you say? Big events and
big events and big kind of if you treat the Klingons as a character,
right?
Big character moments.
Big character moments. Got it. Okay, how about you, Andy?
For the majority of my picks, I kind of went along the lines of like, where did we learn the most about the Klingons? Like, get some backstory or like a big arc that was like super meaningful to like a certain Klingon character or to like a subplot. So that was basically how I picked and chose, and then a couple here and there just for fun.
I like the mix. That's usually the way I do it. And Jeff, what was your main criteria for finalizing your list?
Yeah, I think our Prime Directives are a little bit similar this time around. So everybody who's listened to TrekRanks and other Tricorder shows probably knows that I'm a fan of universe building. So when I make lists like this that focus on a really broad topic, like the Klingons, I tend to favor episodes and films that broaden our knowledge on the topic. So for the most part, everything on my list tonight kind of fits into that model. They all represent backstory moments or other significant Klingon moments in Star Trek.
And yeah, I guess I'm pretty similar to you, Jeff, and a little bit of a mix with Andy. I was looking for some big moments, some big representation, and also just a little bit of fun. So I think I cross all those markers. All right, so before we introduce Third Romaticon to help us go through the order of things, just another quick reminder on how we're going to discuss each pick tonight. We'll reveal the name of our Klingon episode. Then we'll each give our 5-word summary and a hashtag. And then we'll talk about the episode and the elements that made it one of our honorable selections. And then at the end, we might go through some secondary system picks. And then we're going to translate all of our 5 words and a summary into Klingon. So, okay, we're not actually doing that. Okay.
And then we're closing the whole thing out with some blood wine, right?
Yes.
Perfect.
A barrel of 63? That sounds about right. I think that's what
2263, I hope.
Yeah. All right, Third Romaticon. I know that you respect a great Klingon warrior, so let's do this.
I am a Jem'Hadar. He is a Vorta. It is the order of things.
Okay, guys, let's begin. The right of succession and the Jajuk. Prove that your ranks are worthy. We're going to start with Ian and then go to Andy and then Jeff and then myself. So, Ian, kick us off. What is your number 5 pick?
Okay, so for my number 5 pick, I kind of cheated, and I have a feeling that probably some of you also cheated in the same way, in that I tried to get a good broad cross section of Klingons, right? And I wasn't quite able to sneak a TOS one in, but I found a way in DS9 season 5, episode 6, Trials and Tribulations.
Nice. I like this. And by the way, we love cheating on TrekRanks.
Okay, good.
Trials and Tribulations is a Klingon episode. I love it.
Yeah. So, and the reason that it's a Klingon episode in my mind, aside from the fact that it has Klingons in it, is my 5 words: consequences of the Organians Treaty, and the hashtag, I want to hear the Great Tribble Hunt song.
I forgot about the song.
Right? I mean, first of all, like, ever since there was the motion picture with the new, Klingon forehead prosthetics and all of that, which evolved, of course, over the next 15 years or so, there had always been that question of, well, what happened to the Klingons? Why is it that in the original series they basically just look like people with a lot of body hair in blackface, and then by the time the motion picture and then on, comes around, they actually look like, interesting, unique aliens, and here was when we first got the acknowledgement, because it had been like 20 years, something like that, since 77, yeah, give or take a couple years. And we had never had an actual acknowledgement. We were just always, until that episode had aired, we just, whenever we saw the Klingons in the new makeup, we were like, well, yep, those are just the same aliens as, the people in Errand of Mercy and whatnot. And so you just kind of had to use your imagination, I guess, or you would take it at face value and say, well, something happened. And here we got, well, yes, something happened. What was it? We don't talk about it.
What a cop-out.
I loved that. And then, of course, that scene where Worf is getting pressured about, why don't you like tribbles? And he says, well, like an armada obliterated the Klingon or the Tribble homeworld. And Odo wisecracks with, I'm sure they still sing songs about the great Tribble hunt, or whatever his line was. But
it's been my observation that most humanoids love soft, furry animals, especially if they make pleasing sounds.
They do nothing but consume food and breed. If you feed that thing more than the smallest morsel, in a few hours you'll have 10 tribbles, then 100, then 1,000.
Calm down.
They were once considered mortal enemies of the Klingon Empire.
This? A mortal enemy of the Empire?
They were an ecological menace, a plague to be wiped out.
Wiped out? What are you saying?
Hundreds of warriors were sent to track them down throughout the galaxy. An armada obliterated the Tribble homeworld. By the end of the 23rd century, they had been eradicated.
Another glorious chapter of Klingon history. Tell me, did they still sing songs of the great Tribble hunt?
So great.
I love that. That's like, of the things that we know about the Klingons, it is totally within their character to have a great Tribble hunt song.
Of course.
I love the fact that Tribbles, as primitive as they are, have a homeworld.
Yeah.
Right.
They have to be from somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah, and then the other thing is, it's the consequences of the Organians Treaty, which was something that I really wanted to kind of touch on at some point in my pick, because the first appearance of them, of course, is Errand of Mercy, and then you have the Organians, and that the Organian Treaty shows up all throughout Star Trek, but it's very subtle in the ways that it shows up. And trials and tribulations, also, of course, going off of the original series episode, they were basically, that entire setup for that episode was the consequence of the Organians Treaty. They now have this area, a neutral zone, if you will, where you have to develop planets in this competitive way, so that whoever is able to develop it best gets the planet, basically. And that, all of that was from the Organians. And it was such a consequential thing in history, in the history of the Klingon Empire, that I thought, yeah, we gotta get the Organians in there somehow.
Well, we're gonna end on the note that Errand of Mercy is my all-time favorite 5-year mission song, because
I knew that.
Yes, I know. All right, Andy, what's your number 5 pick?
Well, I didn't really put them in any discernible order, just because I couldn't rank them like you do, Jim.
Well, now they are, because this is going to be number 5.
Oh, so basically,
ranking sorry to interrupt, but ranking is kind of Jim's superpower.
Oh no, I know it is. So I'm gonna basically piggyback off Ian for my first pick, and I went with TOS is the trouble with Tribbles.
Yes, 2 Tribbles right off the bat.
5 words: the wheat done gone bad. Hashtag as garbage. Hashtag storage departments.
Such a great moment. All right, well, we kind of already talked about it. The Organians, you got some Koloth love with the Trouble with Tribbles. It was definitely on my short list.
Oh yeah.
I love that our first two picks are Trouble with Tribbles, basically back to back. Excellent job.
I mean, it's just such a classic episode. I mean, it's definitely not our first introduction to the Klingons, obviously, but I mean, you finally get more Klingon Federation interaction other than hey, these Organian guys think that neither one of us belong here. What are we going to do about this? You go. No, you go. So now basically we got them just feuding back and forth and getting into like an old Western bar brawl.
Yeah.
And I love it so much. I mean, I have zero shame in saying that The Trouble with Tribbles is one of my all-time favorite just Star Trek episodes in general.
No doubt.
Totally.
No doubt. It's phenomenal, and the Klingon element is great. Okay, Mr. Hulit, Jeff, what is your number 5 pick?
Oh man, I wish I could have put Trouble with Tribbles as my number 5 pick, but I didn't. My 5 words are Klingon bastards killed my son.
Oh.
And hashtag because you wish it. It is Star Trek 3: The Search for Spock.
Yes.
So pivotal moment in Kirk's history with the Klingons, the deaths of his son, and a significant moment in Trek that I think is really overlooked. I don't hear a lot of people talking about the fact that the Klingons killed Kirk's son. I think it's a huge, huge moment in Star Trek. Krug is one of my favorite Klingons of all time.
He was great.
And obviously one of the most twisted Klingons of all time.
Yes.
I mean, the dude kills his girlfriend for knowing too much, right? She viewed the Genesis tape and he freaking blew her up. That's crazy. And then,
so true.
And then
that's hardcore.
Then he vaporizes his gunner for accidentally blowing up a Federation ship and denying him the prisoners that he wanted. I mean, this dude is the epitome of Klingons. So, I mean, this is Klingon 101 for anybody who wants to know how to be a Klingon. Watch this portrayal, right? So, it's also one of my favorite dialogue exchanges in all of Star Trek. The moment where you've got Krug beaming down to the planet and beaming up most of the people that are on the planet as prisoners, and Kirk says, you should take the Vulcan too, and Krug says no. Kirk asks why, and Krug says because you wish it.
Yes.
Perfect
Love
moment.
it.
So brutal. I mean,
So
Christopher
badass.
Lloyd was the most badass Klingon. I absolutely love this moment. And there's so many great moments in this movie that really, really sell what the Klingons are all about. And I think Christopher Lloyd's portrayal of Krug is absolutely perfect. So
and it's so underrated. No one ever talks about it for sure.
No. I mean, it's not a great movie. I mean, the first half of the film is great. The second half, not so great. But, some of these Klingon moments are so overlooked. And, of course, again, the death of Kirk's son at the hands of the Klingons really shapes... it puts the period on the end of Kirk's building of hatred for the Klingons.
Yeah, and there's even a scene that I love at the end of that movie with John Larroquette's character Maltz.
Yes.
When Kirk and crew beam up to the Bird of Prey after dispatching of Kruge. Spoiler alert. Yeah, it was like 50 years ago. Maltz comes up to him and says, "You said you would kill me," and Kirk is like, "Yeah, I lied."
Yep.
They take him away.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And he's probably on that ship all through Star Trek 4.
Right.
Oh yeah. Take that, sucker.
They left him on Vulcan. Well, Jeff, I have had enough of you.
Nice.
Okay. All right. My number 5 pick is also a little bit of a TOS cheat as well, like Ian said. Mine is a season 2 Deep Space Nine episode, Blood Oath. And my 5 words in a hashtag are revenge best served with Dax. Hashtag Kang, Koloth, and Core. I love these 3 guys. The reason I picked this episode is I just remember being so happy seeing them together in new Star Trek when it came on. I just couldn't believe we were going to have an episode with Kang, Koloth, and Kor.
The OGs.
Exactly, the OGs.
Or the OKs, I guess, really.
Yes, they're more than okay, but they are original Klingons, and I love the Dax element. I love a little bit of the Klingon backstory, the oath she makes. They're connecting TOS Klingons for the first time with TNG Klingons. So just one of my favorite episodes when it comes to Klingon backstory.
Love it.
Okay,
love it. God, that episode was so great. Just like you said, just seeing those three again in action. Even though this was long before the explanation of like, well, why are they had smooth heads, 25 years ago, and now they don't. What's going on? You didn't care. It was just great to see them. And they were Klingons. They were awesome.
It's Kor and he's drunk.
Exactly. Yeah. And let me just no one loves canon or continuity more than me. I love it. It's one of the great things about the 700 hours of Trek mythology. But I'm also not hung up on it. It's not a big deal. Okay, exactly. They've got makeup now. Okay, I get it. And right. I actually love the fact that Enterprise goes back and gives a little backstory on how that could be a thing.
Finally.
Which they did expertly, but even if they didn't, who cares? All right, let's get to round 4. Ian, what is your number 4 pick?
Well, my number 4 pick is Jim. I hear it's your second favorite movie. My 5 words: Shakespeare and the original Klingon. And my hashtag is, hey, Klingon things get names. It is Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country.
I love it. This will not be the only time we talk about this. That is my prediction, but we'll see. So I'm assuming, there's many reasons why it would obviously be on your list.
Yeah, well, so sticking to my Prime Directive, I wanted to tell, or I wanted to focus on stories that were of a consequential nature to the history of the Klingon Empire, and it doesn't get more consequential than the first Khitomer Conference. Right?
Very
and so
true.
You have, plus, beyond that, right? Like you've also got the assassination of the Klingon Chancellor, played by David Warner, who did, if I may say, an amazing job, second only to his performance in Chain of Command. And then you had the great villain, Kang, who I love that guy. I don't know what it is. I just love that guy. You love to hate him.
You meant Chang, right? I think you said Kang.
Oh, geez, did I? Oh, sorry. Yes, I did mean Chang.
Of course. I was getting confused. I was like, wait, we're talking about
Kang
Flashback?
Was not in Star Trek 6.
But he was in Flashback, which is a connection to Star Trek.
That's right. Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
Yeah. So you learn things like, that Klingon things get names. So before, in Next Generation, as the Klingons were starting to get developed, right, and you started getting these insights into their culture, and you even, if I remember correctly, you even had the Klingon Civil War before Star Trek 6 came out. And like all the time, you'd have like, well, it's, Kempek, the leader of the Klingon High Council, sure, right? And then in Star Trek 6, we finally learned it's called the Chancellor, right? And then you learn about like, well, what do they do with their prisoners? Well, they send them to this, ice asteroid called Rurapente, and it's the aliens' graveyard, and all of this. Like you learn so much about the Klingons that was stuff that was already kind of introduced throughout TNG, but you finally were able to pin a name on it.
And you've also got Worf, or
you do,
or Moog, or Uncle Moog, or whatever.
No, that was the character, and he was Worf's grandpa, Morgan.
Yeah, right, his grandpa. So super cool. Okay, I know a really good chance we're gonna talk about this one again. Andy, what's your number 4 pick?
Let's see. My next one, 5 words. Riker makes an awesome Klingon. # there's a hole in the paw. Talking about season 2 of TNG, A Matter of Honor.
I love this pick.
It's definitely probably I would say probably top 3 Klingon episodes now that I'm actually thinking of ranking them.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, it starts off with, just an exchange program, and then Riker comes on and basically, does it all prison style, punch out the biggest guy on the first day, and you're going to get respect. That's exactly what he did.
Tell me of the shortest method of attack against the Enterprise.
I won't.
You must. It is a matter of honor and loyalty to your oath.
I will not surrender the secrets of the Enterprise to you.
If your word is no good, then how can we ever trust Starfleet?
I will not break any vow that I have taken in the past. I have also taken an oath of loyalty to your ship. I will not break that.
They are in conflict!
No, sir, they are not. I will obey your orders. I will serve this ship as first officer. And in an attack against the Enterprise, I will die with this crew. But I will not break my oath of loyalty to Starfleet.
If you had told those secrets about the Enterprise, I would have labeled you a traitor and killed you where you stood. But instead, you will die with us. You will die like a Klingon.
I love
and
that.
Then of course, yeah, and then he has to basically prove that he's not like a Federation spy. Why would he put me on this ship if they were going to destroy it? That's the question you should be asking. Yeah, I love that episode just because basically any chance that Riker gets to be a badass instead of being all contemplative of life and just sitting on chairs weird. I mean, I am gonna love it.
And let's be clear, Riker is a badass in that episode. He is so good.
Complete badass.
That scene where he won't betray the Enterprise and Captain Kargan is telling him, you 2 or 3 times back and forth, you need to tell me what their, I don't know, their shield codes or whatever their weakness was. Mm-hmm. And he says, I'm not doing it. And then Kargan basically says, yeah, if you had told me, I would have said you were a traitor and I would have killed you right where you're standing.
Exactly. I mean, it was
love
just
that moment.
It was cunning, and plus it was the first time we got to see an actual Klingon ship.
Yeah.
The bridge and everything, the inner workings and how the crew works together, and it's just so crazy. It's hey, I don't think the captain's doing a good job. I'm gonna kill him.
Yep. Great pick. All right, what about you, Jeff? What's your number 4 pick?
All right, so my number 4 pick, let me give a shout out to my friend Andy Fark and a tangential nod to Mr. Ian Adams. So my 5 words are best bar fight in Trek and hashtag swaggering, overbearing, tin-plated dictator with delusions of godhood. TOS Season 2, Episode 13, Trouble Tribbles. So comedy aside, I mean, this is a comedy episode, highly regarded as a comedy episode. The more serious parts of this episode, I think, have some excellent Klingon moments. Andy alluded to some of them earlier. So obviously the bar scene in particular displays that great rivalry between the Starfleet crew and the Klingon crew. And I love that. And you get drunken Klingons, which is even adds to it. So, but I think that scene in the bar also illustrates something else that's really more important than that. It establishes the fact that Kirk has a reputation amongst the Klingons, and Korax has some really strong opinions on Kirk, right? So that's awesome. And also on the converse, I think another really standout moment in that episode happens kind of earlier on, and that's the fact that the commander of the station has some really serious concerns about Klingons having shore leave on the station and is requesting security backup from Kirk to protect them from these troublemakers, right? So obviously the Federation and Kirk have a reputation amongst the Klingons and vice versa. So this episode kind of illustrates that amongst all the other things. It kind of seems to get lost in translation, but I think if you really read into it, you kind of get that sense. And also you got Kal'Hyah, who is another amazing Klingon character. And finally, I think Arn Darvin being a surgically altered Klingon to look human, I think that's some more of that Klingon cunning from TOS that kind of gets lost in the future. The fact that they were able to do this kind of devious stuff, these acts of subterfuge that they don't do again in the future, it's a shame, because that really sets the Klingons up to be more than just these hulking brute monsters, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's a great summary of that episode. And I love that we have a duplicate and really almost triplicate, because we've already got trials too. I don't know well, who knows? It might still be on another list. We shall see. We'll see. All right. My number 4 pick is, I'm going to start with my 5 words and a hashtag: a glorious warrior's sad ending. Hashtag the Maktovar ritual. This is the real outlier pick. It's I actually picked Sons of Moog from DS9 season 4.
Nice.
Which is, it's not one of my all-time, I mean, I would never really consider it to be one of my all-time favorite episodes, but when I started to break down these top 5 Klingon episodes, I just could not cut this one because I love what it says about the Klingon culture. First, kind of what it said about Worf, which I love the fact that Worf was never written in a way where he was just doing standard TV tropes. I mean, in The Defector, when I'll never forget just being floored when he doesn't donate his blood to help save that Romulan and he dies.
Oh, yeah, I know.
You know, I'm just like, I just didn't expect that. I'm like, they actually did that on TV? And then same thing, like a season later, he kills Duras in cold blood. And, you know, normal TV show, it's like he goes over there, but he doesn't kill him, you know, because you don't just murder somebody. And I love that. So,
well, maybe
and then,
you don't.
Right. And in this episode, he quite literally stabs his brother in the heart with an assisted suicide moment because the brother Kern is depressed and has had everything taken away from him, and it's the only way to get to Sto-vo-kor. So they perform the Maktovar ritual. And for me, I mean, that's the main reason I picked this. I just think it was a really interesting episode in terms of the Klingon culture, watching the way Kern struggled. And then I really love at the end this moral quagmire and the questions that were raised, because basically I'm pretty sure what Worf did to Kern at the end of that show is not okay.
Right.
Erasing his identity and just letting him live, you know, on a farm somewhere in the outskirts of the Klingon Empire. You know, that's
like a dog.
Exactly. But on the flip side,
live on a farm.
His alternative was to kill his obviously healthy brother just because he was sad and depressed. Anyway, I just love the way that the big questions this episode raised. I loved what it did for Worf's character in good ways and bad ways, making him more interesting. So I know, total outlier pick. But any thoughts?
No, that I loved because it was actually a callback to I can't remember the name of the TNG episode, but basically it was when Worf had basically asked Riker to kill him, and so it was the whole like Maktovar ritual coming back again in DS9, and I was like, oh, that's what he asked Riker to do.
Yep.
Right. So yeah, it was definitely a great callback, and like I was like, that's that thing that happened before. Canon.
Yeah.
It asks a lot of interesting questions in this episode. So
yeah, and kind of piggybacking on what Andy said, right? Like it's also kind of a continuation of what you could see Worf doing to Kern earlier in TNG when remember, like when he was dishonored, he was like, well, no, we just won't tell anyone that you're actually of the House of Moog and you can go do your thing. And so it's just it builds on all that had come before.
Another reason I love Klingons, because of all the layers. So okay, let's move into the soup round 3. Ian, what's your number 3 pick?
All right, so my number 3 pick, and if I'm understanding the rules from earlier episodes all right, it's okay to pick a 2-parter as a single episode.
Did we get to watch more Star Trek when you do that? Then, of course.
Yeah,
The
turns out.
answer is yes.
So my number 3 pick is Deep Space Nine, season 4, episode 1, Way of the Warrior.
Of course.
Nice.
And my 5 words are can't trust a quiet Klingon. And hashtag the blood will tell. And and what I loved about this was the whole premise of it was that the Klingons were returning to the old ways. And I took the old ways to mean more like in the TOS days, right? Where they were just going around conquering worlds willy-nilly, just set up a governor and kill the population until they're in line. And because of that, they're like, well, crap, we got to do something about this. We can't just have Klingons, taking over worlds and stuff, especially nearby empires like the Cardassians. And so they bring in Worf.
It's Commander K-Box.
Why did he give it to me?
He's letting you know K-Box dead. Martok probably had him executed for disobeying orders.
Which means our next confrontation with the Klingons won't be resolved so easily. Any suggestions, old man?
The longer the Klingons are here, the worse things are going to get. Whatever you decide to do, you'd better do it soon.
Curzon told me once that in the long run, the only people who can really handle the Klingons are Klingons.
That was such a great moment, right? I mean,
that was an amazing moment.
Yeah. The first time you saw him walk into Cisco's office, you were like, yes! Yes!
hopping off that turbo lift like a badass.
Exactly.
Iconic Trek moment.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. And I loved that whole thing where it was almost like a C or a D plot, where once the Klingons came aboard, they were all hanging out, but everyone was really quiet. Have you ever heard a quiet Klingon? I haven't. Something's up. And that gives you an insight into Klingon culture, but then also the blood will tell, which is kind of the theme of the episode, right? Not just in that scene where Martok shows up and it's like, okay, everyone, let's prove that we're not changelings, but the blood will tell, as in, hey, we're going to invade Cardassia and we're going to kill a bunch of people, and hey, if they're not changelings, well, the blood will tell.
Ooh.
Big moment in Klingon history.
Oh yeah,
for sure. And it is it's just an all-time great episode of Star Trek. Even it's coming right in the middle of the DS9, even though they had to reset a little bit from where they were building the show, but it just ended up fitting in so well with everything they did those last 4 seasons. Love it.
Oh yeah, it just added so much to DS9 after that.
Perfect. All right, Andy, what's your number 3 pick?
Oh, 5 words are expose Gowron, not assassinate him. Hashtag ultimate DS9 cosplay.
Nice.
Talking about DS9 Season 5 Apocalypse Rising.
Oh, I love this pick. Why is it on your list?
Yeah, it is probably one of my favorite DS9 episodes, because you get to see O'Brien and Odo and Cisco and who's the fourth? Oh, Worf. Duh. He's not really too much in disguise, which is why I couldn't think of him. But yeah, they're going deep undercover, and they're going to basically infiltrate the whole Brother of the Sword ceremony to expose Gowron as the changeling. But they're throwing a wrench in the works. It's not Gowron.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so good.
That episode was just fantastic, beginning to end. Just because, especially seeing Cisco getting so worked up, especially when he was overhearing the one Klingon bragging about going in and just killing everybody on like a Federation ship.
Oh yeah.
And then he just knocks him out, but he still has to stay in character. Just don't get between me and my blood wine.
Such a great moment.
Just like it's just an all-night party, but obviously they have a mission, and it's fantastic. Just seeing them all playing Klingons was just awesome to watch. And then plus the whole twist with Martok being the changeling, and then later on down the road he's in jail.
Yep, they bring him back. I'm ashamed that this isn't even on my short list. Somehow I forgot.
What?
This is such a great pick. This is why I love TrekRanks.
Here then.
I hadn't thought of this one for some odd reason. Incredible. All right. Yep, it is spectacular. All right, Jeff, what's your number 3 pick?
All right. So as you foreshadowed in my intro, my 5 words: Picard makes the best Chadich. Hashtag
Yes.
I can think of no one I'd rather have by my side. TNG Season 3, Episode 17, Sins of the Father.
A classic.
Yeah, I really love the Klingon politics in this episode so much. And along with Worf's family backstory stuff that comes out in this, it's all really great. So there's I think this is a really great episode to illustrate the Klingons' code of honor and how far they will go and how seriously they take it. Also gives some really great insight into Worf and Picard's relationship. I love that Worf has such a deep respect for Picard that he chooses them as Chadich, despite the fact that there are, so many other people on the ship who would be better suited physically to be the Chadich. And Picard also, on the converse, Picard is also willing to put his life on the line to stand by Worf in his time of need. That's huge for a captain to do that. That's amazing.
Captain, I must choose another Chadich. I would like your permission to ask one of the crew.
Well, of course, Lieutenant. Choose whomever you wish.
Then I would ask you to stand with me. You may refuse with no dishonor.
Thank you, Lieutenant. I appreciate the gesture, but I know that there are stronger and younger men from whom to choose.
I can think of no one I would rather have at my side.
Jilajnesh. Gij ket jagmijaj. I accept.
There's so many great Klingon moments in this episode, and there's too many to list. This is really one of my favorite Klingon episodes, and favorite Worf episodes, frankly, of all time.
Yeah, me too. I think it might be. I'm not 100% sure. I think it might be the first episode where Worf says, "Today is a good day to die."
Oh, you might be right on that.
I think you're right.
Maybe.
But the day is not over. So it's an all-time classic.
We got plenty of time for dying. It's okay.
All right.
Dying for days.
Awesome pick, Jeff.
Thank you.
All right, let's end round 3. My number 3 pick. We have a duplicate.
The soup round, by the way.
Alert. The soup round. We are finishing up the soup round. My number 3 pick. Excellent taste of Klingon culture. Hashtag one or both. It is season 2, TNG, A Matter of Honor, which Fark just picked last round. I love this episode. I love Brian Thompson as Clag. I think he was just one of the best. Andy, you mentioned it. You mentioned it early where the captain, Kargan, when Clag's going at him, and he's like, I think this is your first command decision. And then Riker just beats the crap out of him.
Oh, such a good fight.
Really good. It's just the whole episode. The structure is really smart. The B story, the way it intersects with the Klingons at the end, with that Benzite Mendon not reporting the virus or whatever it was infecting their ship, and of course this great scene with there's a great scene where Riker, of course, is eating with all the Klingons, and they're sparring back and forth.
I was going to mention something like that.
And he says, and Clag's telling him how sad he is about his father, and he's disgraced him because he's basically not died. And Riker's trying to tell him, hey, that's not cool. He says something like, I don't know how to Klingons don't know how to show feelings the way humans are. And Riker says, yesterday, I did not know how to eat gach, which I love.
And takes a huge bite.
Yeah, exactly.
And an enthusiastic bite.
Yes.
Oh, very enthusiastic. But probably one of my favorite things about that whole like dinner scene, like in like the galley there, was how like they were just joking around back and forth. Like Riker just fits right in with the Klingons because it's like, why is she looking at me like that? Because she wants to mate with you. I may be back for you or you later. Do you think you could handle that? One or both?
I love it.
Ba-dum-ching.
Yeah, it is pure Klingon gold in that episode. Okay, let's move to round 2. Ian, what is your number 2 choice?
Okay, so I think my 5 words will give it away, so I'll just start there. The 5 words are holy buckets, Klingon Civil War. And it is TNG Season 4, Episode 16, Redemption. But I actually only chose part 1 on this, not the 2 parts.
Interesting.
But my hashtag, the Klingoniest Klingons whatever Klingoned.
Wow.
I know what that means.
Right.
That actually makes sense.
Yeah,
Well,
because
I'm
like
going
this was
with it.
Yeah, this was a really ambitious episode. One of the things that I loved about it was that it asked the audience to care about nuances of Klingon internal politics and culture, and to tell a new story, like a twist on the whole, vague thread of story that TNG had been telling up till then, building on previous stories, but without bogging everyone down with, tedious exposition of like, okay, well, so last year, Worf had his honor lost or whatever, like it just expected everyone to know all of that stuff. And the episode, it's mostly talking heads, aside from like one part in Act 3 where there's like a ship battle. It's basically talking heads, but all of those scenes are so compelling. You can't help but be interested in what's going on and trying to follow it and connect the dots. And, all the choices offered and taken by each character are really tough. And the stakes, they feel high, but like not in an unbelievable way. Like you could see how everything just sort of fell into place to make this huge crisis of this corner of the galaxy happen. And it was full of Klingons being the Klingoniest Klingons whatever Klingoned.
That is the absolute truth. It's an all-time great episode of Trek, and I don't know if there's anything to add to that.
I can't add anything.
Okay, it's spectacular. All right, Andy, what's your number 2 pick?
Oh, I think I'm gonna go with let's see, my 5 words are Captain Archer goes to jail. Hashtag
yeah.
Attica. So Enterprise Season 2 Judgment.
I love it. Wait, what was your hashtag?
Oh, Attica.
Oh.
Oh.
All right, an Enterprise choice. I love this. So all right, break it down.
Because I was going through and I was like, you know what? I think there's really only like 2 or 3 episodes featuring Klingons on Enterprise. I want to go back and watch them. So I watched them over the other day, and I forgot how great of an episode Judgment is. It's basically like an episode of Law and Order, but it's just set in like in Klingon space.
Yep. And
it's fantastic. Like Archer is basically just accused of this crime, quote unquote, and you basically get like the hashtag fake news from the now ex Klingon commander, and then Archer's like, that's not what happened, you shut up.
Yeah. I love when they frame the different versions.
All I know is great. It's like a whole big like he said she said type thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's really a fantastic episode. And then and then of course you get J.G. Hertzler as like the best Klingon lawyer ever.
Of course, yeah.
And he played the crap out of that role. Like the one thing that bugged me was like the judge in that was just a little too like over the top, ham-handed with his acting. I will have silence in my court. like he's the crotchetiest old bionic-handed Klingon ever.
Right.
Slamming that sparking ball down as a gavel.
And you get some bonus Ruropente in this episode.
That's very true. Oh yeah, because the Malcolm comes down and leads the rescue effort. Yeah, I thought overall that was a great episode. Plus, I always want to include an episode of Enterprise like wherever I can.
Love it. Love that selection. All right, Jeff, what's your number 2 pick?
Wow, I'm amazed this hasn't been picked yet. Although Ian alluded to it earlier, I think.
Ooh, I know what it is. I know what it is.
He knows what it is. 5 words. It would have been glorious.
Yes.
Hashtag Today We Conquer. TOS Season 1, Episode 27, nice. Errand of Mercy.
There you go. I knew somebody was going to pick it.
You have to. I mean, the first appearance of the Klingons has to be on this list somewhere, right?
Oh, sure. Of course.
Plus, you get the introduction of Kor, who is a fairly major Klingon character, right?
The fact is, Captain, I have a great admiration for your Starfleet. A remarkable instrument. And I must confess to a certain admiration for you. I know, of course, that it was you who destroyed our supplies last night.
Something was destroyed? Nothing inconsequential, I hope.
Hardly. They were quite important to us, but they can be replaced. You of the Federation, you are much like us.
We're nothing like you. We're a democratic body.
Come now, Captain, I'm not referring to minor ideological differences. I mean that we are similar as a species. Here we are on a planet of sheep. 2 tigers, predators, hunters, killers. And it is precisely that which makes us great. And there is a universe to be taken.
It's a very large universe, Commander, full of people who don't like the Klingons.
Excellent. Then it shall be a matter of testing each other's wills and power. Survival must be earned, Captain.
You can't not have this. This episode sets the stage for all Klingon episodes and characters to follow, right? It sets up the Klingon race as, the aggressive and cunning conquerors that we know them to be. Also gives us a glimpse into Kirk's evolving hatred for the Klingons.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. They almost hugged and kissed at the end. They loved each other.
That's because they had to. They had to, because the Organians wouldn't have allowed it to happen any other way. But I think that, and at the end, Kirk and Spock's assault on the Klingon stronghold, and the fact that they chose to only stun and not kill the Klingons is a great example of the difference between the Federation and Klingon approaches to expansion of their territories, right? I think that really sets an important stage.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree with that.
I mean, it's one of my all-time favorite episodes. You're so right. It builds the Klingon culture, even though it really only shows Kor and his kind of stiff henchman. But the way he represents it, just in the things you just said, are pretty amazing. It's incredible. And we have the right.
Yes.
To kill millions, Captain. Well, nobody wants war.
I just loved it because it was a great introduction to like the absolute ruthlessness of what Klingons would come to be.
Absolutely.
Yep. Well, I am fired up that somebody picked it. I will, spoiler alert, it's not on my list. It's literally my number 6, and I ended up not picking it just because I felt, I was hoping somebody else would, but I felt like
that was my thought too.
Because all we saw was Kor, and I felt like maybe it just wasn't quite enough. But
TOS Jeff will pick it.
I love it. Yes, way to go, Jeff. All right, my number 2 pick is another duplicate. Alert! We have another duplicate, and my 5 words in a hashtag are Kern Duras Chadich Klingon intrigue. Hashtag you're still fat, Kempek. Sins of the Father from TNG Season 3. And we talked about it already. I mean, Jeff hit it out of the park when he described it. It's one of the best episodes in terms of structure and just TNG, the layers of what they did for building the Klingon culture. So definitely not a deep cut choice. And it's also a little bit of a sequel to Matter of Honor, which I like, because it starts with Kern coming on board the Enterprise in this exchange program and then revealing that they're brothers. So I love Kempek. I love the ending where Kalis tells him he's fat. I can't stand Duras. Duras is just the worst scumbag.
Yes.
In every generation.
Yes, exactly. In every generation, the many different versions of Duras, and it's really the fulcrum for everything of what TNG did with Klingons. So, all-time great episode. Okay, let's. We've talked about that one enough. Let's move on to our number one top 5 Klingon episode choices. Mr. Ian Adams, what's your number one choice?
Well, I feel like it should be the way of a number one pick that you lead with the 5 words in the hashtag before going into the episode. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay. So my 5 words are, what hope for the Empire? And the hashtag, leader of the Empire, leader of destiny. And it is DS9, Season 7, Episode 22, Tacking into the Wind. I really feel like this is one of the greatest Klingon episodes, even though it's probably not one that most people think of when they think of a Klingon episode. But
it's on my list.
Yeah, like it's a supremely consequential episode for Klingons. You know, it serves as this nice bookend for Gowron's reign, with Worf being the one to both install him and remove him from all the way back in TNG, all the way there, right? I love the scene when Sisko gets in Gowron's face about the bad campaigns Martok has been sent on.
Oh, so good.
You know, Gowron thinks
it's a suicide mission.
Right. And Gowron thinks that Sisko's dressing him down out of loyalty, as he says, even though Sisko's just saying exactly the truth, right? But it gives you this great insight into Klingon psychology, because Gowron sees that kind of confrontation and assumes, like, presumably based on his interactions with other Klingons, you know, over his whole life, that Sisko's doing it because of a personality trait that Klingons supposedly value, which is a sense of loyalty. But Sisko's really just telling him like it is, and like, you better get your stuff together or else we're going to lose this war. And you know, of course, there's that fantastic scene with Ezri and Worf in Quark's bar, where Ezri kind of gives her, like, you know, thesis topic on the Klingon Empire, you know.
That was basically the summary. That was the summary of all Klingons for the previous, you know, all of DS9 and all of TNG. It was really, really smart.
Right. You know, and it was great because it also echoed like there were a couple times in DS9 when characters gave some kind of, like, you know, outsiders observations of a particular species or a planet or a galactic power. Like, I'm thinking specifically of Quark's great rant on the Federation in Way of the Warrior, where he's got Garrick at the bar. You remember?
Yeah, I was about to say which one, because he did it in the Jem'Hadar, he did it in the Siege of AR.
Good point. I'm thinking of the one from Way of the Warrior where he's got Garrick sat down and he poured some root beer.
Yeah, that's the root beer one.
Yeah, and there's a lot of truth to what Ezri says, but if you think about it, it's not the end-all be-all on the subject, because what's great about this episode is that that's a speech that she gives as advice to Worf, which Worf asked for, and it ends up being exactly what he needed to hear, right? Kind of a theme of the episode, right?
Hard truth.
Yeah, because if it weren't for that criticism of the Klingon Empire, I'm convinced there is no chance that Worf would have had the courage to challenge Gowron, which was huge.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. And then of course, what I especially loved about that is that like Worf was so humble about like, you know, his place within the Empire, that he's like, nah, Martok, you take this. No, I'm not taking no for an answer. Martok, you take this.
Right.
Yeah, that's a incredible moment to close out the series. So good.
So good.
All right. Awesome deep cut choice from Ian. All right, Andy, what's your number one pick?
All right. Now, it's like I said, I'm not putting these in any order.
Yep.
Plus, I'm also trying not to do any duplicates, even though there were some on my list.
Okay, got it.
What I'm going with here, 5 words: Professor Worf schools Klingon kids. # get that off my table. Talking about
no.
Talking about TNG Season 6, Birthright Part 2.
Yes.
Oh man, because like I said when I was going through and trying to pick these episodes, like where do you learn a lot about the Klingon culture? Like Worf basically was just giving basically his TED talk about about the Klingons.
Tonight, as we came home, we sang a song of victory. A song known only to me as a lullaby. But it is a warrior's song. Ba-da, to-maw. Fire streaks the heavens. Shoja, to-ro. Battle has begun.
Bagda tumo, shoja duro, yaja ke-o, yaja ke-o, yaja ke-o.
And that's pretty much the gist of that particular episode, other than him having to escape this secret Romulan Klingon prison camp. And he's like, don't you know what this spear is? This isn't for tilling soil. And then showing him how to play that game correctly and taking the kid out hunting and everything, basically riling these people up. Remember who you are. Klingon lives matter.
This is so the Worf Klingon TED Talk. That is exactly what Birthright Part 2 is.
That's exactly what it is. Like I actually made sure to put Klingon TED Talk in my notes.
And also, I'm not sure if that's. I was already saying that when I realized Klingon Lives Matter might actually even be more apropos. Awesome. That's a great deep.
That's what I should have used for the hashtag.
Great secondary hashtags.
It was definitely on my secondary systems because I love what that says about the Klingons, and I love when they sing that song and when he teaches them the song. Yeah.
Well, because that was great because the kids grew up thinking of that as like a lullaby and they had no clue what they were singing. That's basically like my kids when they were little, it's like singing along to like a Descendants song about farting in a van while on tour. They don't know what they're singing. They just know there's fart sounds and it's hilarious.
They're listening to the Misfits.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
They're listening to like Beat on the Brat by the Ramones, and all they know is that it's just repetitive and it's simple words. And then Klingons all this time are singing about the glory of the hunt and blood and everything. It's like, oh my God, you were singing this as a lullaby? That's some dark stuff.
Yeah, there's some good performances in that episode too. All right, great, awesome number one pick on Fark's list. I don't care what you say; it's now your number one all-time Klingon episode. You can never change it. Okay, Jeff, what's your number one pick, buddy?
It better be Andy's pick, or else.
No,
it's not Andy's pick, but it's a duplicate.
I know what it is.
Oh, Jim knows what it is. It's a duplicate, and it's a duplicate on this episode, and it's also a duplicate from my one-off villains picks.
Yes.
Ooh.
Yeah, obviously Jim is on to me. So 5 words. Guess who's coming to dinner? Yeah. # history is replete with turning points. Once again, Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. I don't know. There's too many moments that make this movie a great Klingon quote-unquote episode. I mean, we get a cataclysm that threatens the Klingons' homeworld and the Federation debating their response to that cataclysm. Right. And as good as we think the Federation is, they're divided on what to do about it. So there's a great political angle to this. So the Federation aren't always the good guys, right? They're not always right. They're not always altruistic, right? Even Kirk wants to let the Klingons die. It's huge. So, and not only that, there's some fantastic Klingon characters here. We get to see what I think is a rarity, is a Klingon who actually wants peace and wants to work for peace with the Federation in Chancellor Gorkon. So fantastic character there. His views fly in the face of all the other Klingons that came before him, right? We haven't seen, but up to that point, we hadn't seen a Klingon who truly was committed to making peace with the Federation, right? And then you've got the opposite. We've got General Chang, who, I mean, everybody knows. General Chang, and in my mind, and I said this on my one-off villains pick, and forgive me for repeating myself, TrekRanks listeners, I feel like General Chang is the perfect mix of a TOS era Klingon and a post-TOS Klingon.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
He's he's got that brilliant tactician thing going on. He's a warmonger, but he's still got that kind of a tough Klingon bit to him. And I saved the best thing for last. I think this is one of the best parts of this movie that is so far overlooked. You've got a female Klingon who is in a position of influence. You've got, Gorkon's daughter, Azek Bor, who ascends to this position once her father is killed, and she takes up the mantle and leads this peace conference in his stead. I mean, that's a huge, for the Klingon Empire to have an influential female at the head there, negotiating for peace to save the Klingon race is huge. It's a gigantic moment in Trek, and I think that's really overlooked.
Yeah, and so you remember there was even during the Rite of Succession, was that what it was called? Rite of Succession?
Yes, and the Jajuk.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You remember that was the reason that neither Lursen or B'Etor could become, emperor, was because, they're women.
Yep.
And I always took it as being like that the sort of chauvinism and sexism of the Klingon Empire was such that after Azet Bor, they were like, well, let's not do that again, guys. Right. You know what I mean?
Lesson learned, fellas, huh?
Right. That they had to kind of get to their jerk roots as Klingons. That they would be like, well, okay, Azet Bor, you win this time. But from now on, no more girls in the treehouse.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm buying that retcon. I think we need a better retcon story for a while.
Oh, and don't let me forget, by the way, on the way out at the end of this, that we've also got a Badmiral in this movie, and we know how Jim and I both love our Badmirals, right? Yes. We've got our Admiral Cartwright.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So treasonous General Cartwright, or Admiral Cartwright rather. So Badmiral moment.
No, I knew you could not resist picking this. I thought it would be your number one, even though it was a little bit repetitive from some of our previous shows.
It is.
And by the way, let's do my number one pick. Because I tried not to pick this. I did, but I had to. It's my all-time number one favorite TNG episode. And we just talked about it 2 episodes ago, but I could not pick it. It's Redemption.
Nice.
It's number one on my list. Yeah, I just love this. My 5 words and a hashtag. Yes, I picked both because I'm always about more Star Trek. But you're, of course, right that the first episode is way more Klingon-centric. The second is a little more Romulan-centric. So, my 5 words and a hashtag are complex plotting hits new heights. Hashtag your blood will paint the way to the future.
Yeah.
Oh, such a great line.
I love that moment. I love Kern in this episode. I love Worf. I love Gowron. It's Ron Moore at his best. It really, we talked about it, so we don't need to get too much more into it, but you actually said it, Ian. It instead of just talking about it, it's showing everybody the actual politics, the actual intrigue, the depths of the culture in a way that, it's at some level you never thought you'd see. And when I remember watching this episode and thinking, I was just being blown away by just how deep they were going in Star Trek in general, just in terms of the layers. So
and it required you to really just pay attention to just what people were saying, because that was where most of the whole drama of the episode was just like people explaining, like, okay, well, here's the situation, and now we've got this, and now we've got this, but you can't be there.
Okay, all right, let's wrap it up, because This list is incredible. I've got some unbelievable stats, which we'll reveal in a minute in our regeneration cycle. But let's just hit on a couple of secondary system choices. So far, you got any one or two more picks you just want to throw out there really quick?
Well, I had a couple of repeats from you guys. Of course, Blood Oath is on there because I mean this was a fantastic episode. Of course, with Ian tacking into the wind. Because that's just
nice.
Hail Worf. I mean, Marton. It was just amazing, like the lead up to that, and plus the fight scene between Worf and Gowron was so amazingly well done.
And the death of Gowron.
Exactly. Stabbed through the heart at that. But like my other one that I went with that I thought was kind of pivotal and showed kind of like some weird underhanded stuff was let's see, 5 words is test tube Kalis loses election, hashtag fake news, hashtag faith in the heart. So season 6 TNG rightful heir.
That's fantastic.
Just because I mean it was great because you got to see Worf basically trying to put himself in a trance to get this vision. So you got like a lot of the backstory on the Klingon religion, and then of course the underhanded backstabbing like shadow government trying to form thing with like within the Empire. So I thought that was a great episode.
Yeah, that's a great hashtag.
And plus I loved the fact that like the Kalis clone truly believed he was Kalis,
right?
Yeah. And so he was just so sure of it, and like I am your god. This is I told you I'd be back. Here I am, honkies.
It was a pretty actually that was a pretty good high concept TNG episode. We did high concept really Voyager, but it wasn't a cop out. It was like, yeah, he's a clone, so deal with it. Okay, we'll put him in some kind of position. All right, how about you, Ian? Any secondary system choices?
Yeah, well, I gotta say that your pick, Andy, of rightful heir was on my short list, but it didn't make the secondary systems, and that's only because I couldn't come up with a good 5 words and a hashtag. All of my secondary systems were so close to being in my order of things that I came up with 5 words and a hashtag for them, and I didn't really decide on it at all until yesterday.
Well, give us one. What's your number 6?
Okay, so we've got Enterprise season 4, episode 16, Divergence.
Yes.
Nice one.
The 5 words are TOS Klingons are finally explained.
Yeah.
And the hashtag is, see, this is why we can't have nice genes.
Superb. Super. I'm glad we got a little love for the affliction.
You only went with that for the hashtag.
I did actually.
Awesome. All right, Jeff. Any last second picks for you?
I almost put a private little war in there.
Oh yeah.
I think that's a great example of the Klingons' tactics of arming a more primitive race in order to have them rise up and allow the Klingons to actually conquer the planet without having to use their own resources. Really typical Klingon practice. Almost made it into the list. I had a couple of Enterprise episodes in here. Broken Bow is on my secondary systems. And Judgment is in my secondary systems too. So there were a few in there, but that almost made the cut, but didn't.
Yeah, I had Day of the Dove, which hasn't gotten mentioned yet. And I just want to throw out, let's get a little Voyager. I didn't pick Barge of the Dead. I didn't pick Prophecy or Day of Honor, but I really like Lineage with where B'Elanna's dealing with kind of the makeup of her child's DNA, whether she wants it to be as much Klingon as she is. So an interesting breakdown. Okay, so let's end this rite of succession. It is over. It's time to activate our regeneration cycle and wind this episode down.
Computer, activate regeneration cycle. Alcoves beta and gamma.
Okay, let's not run through the quick recap because I've got so many stats here. We're going to just break it down. It's pretty unbelievable. I've got the breakdown was very even. So we had Enterprise only had one. No Kelvin timeline, no Voyager picks. DS9 and TOS both had 6 picks.
Wow.
And TNG led the way with 7, so very narrow. We also had a TrekRanks record, 5 duplicate choices.
Holy.
And one of those is an asterisk, because you might even say it's a triplicate, because we had two tribbles and trials.
Yep. Trials.
So 5 duplicates is unheard of. That's amazing. And let's break down some of the most popular Klingons. So we've got Kang only got 1 mention, Kor 2, Arn Darvin 3.
Oh yeah.
Koloth had 4 mentions.
Whoa.
The Moog family, not including Worf, had 6 mentions. So most of those Kern with 5. Martok was in 3. We're going to add a bonus because J.G. Hertzler also was in Judgment, so that's 4.
Word.
Gowron had 3 mentions. We had 3 Tribbles episodes, 2 Rurapenthe episodes, and the Duroses were all over the place with about 8 different episodes. So
as they are.
Yes. All right. That is our crazy breakdown of our top 5 Klingon episodes, which I love it. Really, really in depth. So I think, is anyone feeling a little deja vu? Or as Worf would say, the Nipa. Because guess what? We've re-entered a temporal causality loop. So before we can depart, it's time to hear from you.
The Enterprise has been caught up in a temporal causality loop, and I suspect that something similar may have happened to you.
So last week was our first big Voyager deep dive as we carved into our top 5 high-concept Voyager episodes. You know, I don't think Voyager sometimes gets the most love, but I knew this topic would showcase the strength of the series, which for me is big ideas and huge sci-fi conceits, which we got a lot of feedback on. So for this week's Temporal Causality Loop, we are going to highlight just a few standout picks of some of the different episodes that we didn't get to mention on the show. So there are so many, it would have been impossible to get through them all. So first up is The Borg, spelled T-E-H Borg, still haven't figured that out, at Star Trek 1701 on Twitter, Star Trek with no vowels. And I have to give him a shout out because while this episode is not necessarily very popular, it's definitely a high concept. They selected Concerning Flight. And they also submitted a brilliant 5-word summary and a hashtag. 16th century master is alien. Hashtag where no Renaissance man has gone before. I love that. Brilliant. Okay, another unique pick came in from @NerdRick on Twitter, who sent the let's do the 5-word summary and a hashtag first. First contact in a dream. Hashtag neglected to wear my uniform. And of course, that is Waking Moments, which is another episode with a huge high concept. And of course, it has Tuvok in the buff as well. So brilliant hashtag from NerdRick. And one more reference, I really loved @Phil's Stalkers on Twitter, his list, because it was basically all Naomi Wildman. So that's an interesting high concept. And TrekRanks, listen, we got all day for Naomi Wildman here. Love her. He picked Mortal Coil, Bliss, Lineage, Dark Frontier, and Once Upon a Time. So clearly Phil's a big fan of Flotter and Trevis. So, all right, let's squeeze in one more. Shout out to Justin Oser, a.k.a. @TrekFan4747. He's on Twitter pretty prolifically, tweeting about Star Trek. He was the only person, at least in our early responses, to highlight Latent Image, which is a huge high concept and honestly probably one of Voyager's best episodes. So that's a brilliant pick. All right, with picks that good, I think we've easily pulled ourselves out of this week's temporal causality loop. So as always, thanks everyone again for all the amazing response we've been getting from our listeners on Twitter. Keep those lists coming to me at TrekRanks so we can add them to our database numbers and we can retweet them and we can get in conversations with you, because that is my favorite thing to do, is talk about Star Trek. and I do it a lot on Twitter. So put together your list of top 5 Klingon episodes and give us a call. Tell us your list. Call us at the Tricorder transmissions at 609-512-5527. That's 609-512-LLAP. Hopefully we'll hear from you and we can get you featured in the next episode of Trek Ranks. And in the next episode of Trek Ranks, we're going to continue our Discovery Month. Tonight, we obviously went through our Klingon favorites because we know Discovery is going to be chock full of Klingons. And in our next episode, we're going to continue our Discovery talk and our theme as we rank our top 5 epic arcs. Because Discovery is going to be very different looking Star Trek series. It's going to be all about it's pretty much a one massive 15-part story across a full season, and that's going to be really cool.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, big or small, epic arcs. You know, you can define an arc however you want. And yeah, you guys have any quick thoughts on some of your favorite Trek arcs?
Dominion War.
Right?
Yes.
Obviously. I mean,
Yep.
that's like the be all end all of like any Star Trek arc there could possibly ever be, just because it was so complicated. It went through so many episodes over multiple seasons. They kept coming back to it. Oh man. And plus we got to have Jeff Combs for so many parts. Oh my God. As Wayun, one of my favorite all-time Trek characters.
All time.
I love that. How about you, Andy? Give me a small one. So that Dominion War, you can't get any bigger. What's a small? You got a small arc that you would?
A small arc?
Something that jumps out.
A smaller arc. I would have to go with. It wasn't. I'm not even sure if you could really consider it an arc, but on same on DS9. You had let's see. You had Quark in the marrying a Klingon.
I love it.
That actually came up a couple times.
Okay, I love that you came up with that because that's exactly what the episode's about. It could be as big as the Dominion War or as small as Quark's love life with Grilka. So I love that idea. How about you, Ian? Anything?
Wow.
Anything jump out? Just what jumped into your head first thing when you heard arcs?
Well, I'm not going to say the Vulcan arc. Only because that's the obvious one.
I like that one. That's a good one.
It is a good one. But, you know, I would say actually, if we're going to go Enterprise, like the end of season 2, when they're trying their darndest to get to Risa for like 3 or 4 episodes, and something keeps pulling them away, and they got to go deal with this hostage situation or this.
Got a distress call.
Whatever, yeah.
Okay, say no more. But the Risa end of season 1 arc on Enterprise, hilarious. That is what Trek Ranks is all about. Somebody might pick that. And that is a pretty small arc, to say the least. All right, but one thing we know is that the Discovery arcs are going to be huge. Okay, so all right. Well, before we wrap it up, just a huge thanks to the brilliant Ian Adams and Mr. Andy Fark. They have successfully navigated the second rite of ascension. No pain sticks. We avoided the pain sticks. So, all right. Thanks, guys. I hope you had fun.
Thanks for having me.
You guys avoided the pain sticks?
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
You didn't get the memo.
Why did I not?
And a reminder.
Feeling so cheated now.
5yearmission.net. Go check them out. Year 4 is coming. And even if it wasn't, you got their whole back catalog, and it is nothing but awesome.
So good.
Go check it out. All right, guys. We love it. Okay. Jeff, any last comments to wrap up the Klingon episodes?
No, man, this was a fun one. It was more fun than I even anticipated. So looking forward to our next episode with some other super special guests that I won't spoil.
All right. Yeah, we're going to keep that one under wraps of who's coming on next episode because it's a big one. All right. Thanks again for engaging with us here on episode 10 of the TrekRanks Podcast. As always, I want to close by saying I'm looking forward to standing with you again here in this place where I belong.
Oi, careless poo, Claude. Oi, pook me poo. Yakba, makba, teshui. Sema, sume, Makcha. Shoo, bana, and not come to the day in the Makcha.